So here I am in Long Island City, Queens, where I'm from. It's always a shock to me whenever I return back how much it's gentrified. When I was living there, it was a shithole. Um, and there's a movie, believe it or not, for a hot second in the I think it was the 1990s or the early 2000s. Astoria, Queens, kind of got in the zeitgeist because there was this guy who used to belong to a hardcore rock group. I don't even remember his name, but he wrote a book called a guide to identifying your saints. It's about his life growing up in Astoria. A guide to your saints. I literally don't remember. I read his. I actually didn't read his book, but I saw the movie with um, uh, 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 Downey Jr. The guy who plays Iron Man. He played him in the movie. Um, and it kind of gives you the way Queens used to be. My area of Astoria used to be how it was when I was growing up, and it was kind of gritty, kind of like a poor working class. But now it's gentrified, and it's funny. The ones who are gentrifying it are all like these liberals who pretend they're socialists, But they're the ones who are driving up the prices of everything. When the neighborhood was working class, it was affordable. People could live there. A mom and pop shop could be open. As soon as these liberal hippies show up, the prices go through the roof. And like apartments, an apartment costs almost $2,000 a month there. That's outrageous. And it's
well,
not
AOC and yeah, sorry, I'm interrupting it. AOC and the socialists, they act like, oh, we're going to put all this stuff in the hands of the people instead of corporations. Yeah, like the People's Republic of China, those people.
Right,
the people meaning the government.
Right. Oh, hey, Elron, Dieter Montiel was the writer. Is that what you're saying? I think that's his name. Yeah, he was he actually I actually like brushed against him. I remember when I was a kid, I was more into heavy metal. Like, guys, I don't want to go into the weeds about it, but when I was growing up, heavy metal guys like the Black Sabbath heavy metal guys hated the New York hardcore group for some reason. We hated punk rockers. They hated the heavy metal guys. Like when we see each other, we get into, believe it or not, we get into fist fights because of the hair. If you had long hair, you were heavy metal. If you had short hair,
well, it was like cliques and stuff. Like I think it might have been Razor Fist, or I think it was him, but somebody was talking about Blondie, who's classified as punk rock, and the music sounds like pop, but it's because she hung out with those people and played at the same clubs.
Well, it was more on reflection, it actually reminds me of the Who singing about the mods versus the greasers.
Mods and rockers.
Mods and rockers.
They called it mods and rockers.
Right, the rockers were the greasers, the guys that look like Fonzie.
But meanwhile, they were kind of, I think they were kind of mods a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. So New York.
The mods, they made fun of them for driving mopeds.
Yeah, stuff like that. So
dressing like Austin Powers.
So Astoria in the 1980s was this weird mix of the Puerto Ricans all being into disco, rap, and then became rap, and so all the Hispanics and stuff were into dance music, whatever. Like hip hop was happening because we're nearby Queensbridge, the Queensbridge projects, and then in the part of Astoria where I was, Long Island City, there was this New York City hardcore movement popping up, and then there was this other movement of which was like an older tradition of like the Led Zeppelin types and whatnot. I knew one of the guys who was a graffiti artist as a kid because I used to see him do graffiti, and I went, "Hey man, that's cool." And he was into like Led Zeppelin and shit, so he had a lot of so back then people don't realize, everyone assumes that graffiti was part of hip hop, but it was actually before hip hop. The guys who were doing it were really more like rock and roll types. They were into that. They weren't really into disco or anything like that. So that's something about the graffiti culture that everyone assumes is part of hip hop, but it predates hip hop.
Blondie was a little bit disco and then a little bit hip hop too, with that song "Rapture," which is a great song. Which is talking about the man from Mars eating cars.
Yeah, well, that's her white way of rapping. She didn't. She tried to rap,
Well, really early though.
Yeah,
so
very early.
I give her credit for that.
So, in the movie, again, I didn't read the book, but in the movie, it's called A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints. In the movie version of it, there's this scene where there's these two teenage boys. I think one of them is like emotionally troubled. I don't remember why he was like emotional, like he was beaten up or bullied or whatever. The typical Hollywood bullshit. So he commits suicide by jumping in front of the elevated train, that was coming into the station. So he jumps in front of it and kills himself in front of his friends. But I was there when that happened. I mean, I wasn't physically at the station, but I was around when that happened. That had nothing to do with it. The kid was doing what all of us was doing, and they were riding in between their cars, and they were doing something called train surfing, which I did myself, believe it or not, as an idiot. They would get outside of the car, and as the car is going up the elevated tracks, they get on top of the train and ride it, and you would dare yourself. I never did that, but I did like get up a little bit high and stick my head up, and he slipped from that and he fell to his death. But in the book, they make it seem like he committed suicide because he was bullied or some shit. So that's like that's my like insider information on that part of Astoria, where they make it seem like he's bullied and it's some sort of like he's abused all the time, and this is the only way he can get out from the situation. But he was a stupid kid riding the trains. He was train surfing. And I remember that after it happened, the police came to our school and we had an assembly, and the police were telling us, don't ride on top of, it was like emergency sessions and everything. So don't do this, don't do that. I even had a friend, I think his name was, I forgot his name, Gus.
Joey Bag of Donuts.
Yeah, no, Gus. He used to unscrew the light bulbs from the.
They called him Unscrewy Gus.
he would unscrew the light bulbs from the train station, and then while the train was running going through the stops and stuff, he would take the light bulbs and he would toss them like we were 100 feet in the air, 200 feet in the air, like really high, and he would throw the light bulbs on the street. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Are you crazy? He goes, no, man, it's cool. And he's like, he's buying.
Don't you know I'm Unscrewy Gus? That's what I do.
So that was my childhood, man, and that was like a story at the time. Not gang banging, no one was going around shooting anybody, but it was shit like that was happening.